welcome to the Babble On Podcast. We are the Babble On 4. We're going to be talking about Babble On 5. We have just, well, not just, but we have watched the pilot, The Gathering.
Like 3 weeks ago-ish.
Yeah,
Listen,
I mean,
there were fires.
There was yes, your city was on fire.
Our city was on fire.
There's a lot going on.
Yes.
And then life kept happening. But now we're here.
This is
There were the holidays. There were the
there
fires.
were the holidays. There were fires.
Yeah. Yes,
this is a
there was
wild introduction for people who don't know who we are.
It was the dawn of the streaming age, where fandoms gather and deep dives flourish. 4 friends, bound by a shared love of stories, embark on a journey to a legendary space station. 2 veterans of the ancient television wars, revisiting a familiar battlefield. 2 newcomers, eager to explore its mysteries and unravel its secrets. And a canine companion, ever watchful, ever present. Their mission? To boldly go where many have gone before, armed with wit, wisdom, and the occasional wild theory. This is the story of Babble On. The year is 2025. The place, wherever you get your podcasts.
Exactly. We should introduce ourselves.
Why don't you know who we are?
Of course.
Here we are in Hollywood.
Yes.
I'm not going first.
I'll introduce myself first. I'm Jenny, known on YouTube as Lezbi Nerdy, and I am a nerd who really enjoys Babble On 5. I've watched it a few times, and wanted to talk about it with my friends.
Okay, I am Jenn. I have a Wheel of Time podcast called Three Wheeling. I am a fantasy and sci-fi nerd and geek. I am a screenwriter in Los Angeles. I write a lot of animation, but I also love genre television, and also watched Babble On 5 only once, and a minute ago. So this is it. So I'm familiar. I know it. I love it. But I'm also have not watched it as consistently and regularly as Jenny has.
I'm Gus. I'm an actor and a general nerd, and I also have a Wheel of Time podcast, if that's relevant, with this person sitting next to me, who you'll learn about in a minute. I have watched Babble On 5. This is pilot episode, The Gathering, twice. One of the times was about a minute ago because I rewatched it in preparation for this, because our live reaction recording thing we did quite a while ago, and I wanted to refresh myself on it.
I'm Ali. I'm the other half of Wheel Takes podcast. I also am part of the Hot Nuance podcast that's covering the Alana series by Tamara Pierce. I'm also a screenwriter in Hollywood. I've written for primarily animation, and I have watched the first episode of Babble On 5 exactly one time because Gus decided to be more prepared than me for this.
Gus gets a gold star. Excellent job, Gus.
I had a little more free time than she.
Yeah,
Listen,
you were bringing your dog
our
home
dog
from the vet.
needed to have his stitches removed. He's fine.
Yes.
He's just had a
Salad.
bit of skin cancer on his penis. So
Can't open the podcast with that.
can't
People
do it.
don't know who we
I
are.
can do what I want to, and it's kind of funny because he's going to be fine.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yes.
Dead serious. One day I was looking at
Jenny,
his...
you can cut all of this. If you
No,
want to.
do not
You
keep
cut all of
it's
this.
vital information about us and our lives.
Well,
I had to have his stitches removed from his penis.
75% of the potential user base just stopped listening.
Or continued to listen because that is the kind of information that I will share on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, we are called the Babble On Podcast because we will babble on.
We do babble on.
Exactly.
happen.
Yes.
You'll hear about my dog's dick cancer.
You got to stop saying that. You really got to, because now she can't cut around it as easily.
Fine. I will amend it for you to penis cancer.
That's not better.
Okay.
Oh my god! Is there a word that they say on TikTok instead of this? Is there like a?
They just put threes and stuff.
Pen 15 cancer.
Well, that's a good show, though.
Eggplant cancer.
15
Eggplant cancer.
Yeah.
Our
Actually,
dog
it's a
had
dog, it's
skin
lipstick.
cancer on his eggplant.
It was skin cancer.
I don't like
We can
the
just say it
lipstick
was-
one because that freaks me out.
He's
Like,
fine. He's good. He's just got a cone on. It was huge.
Okay.
And he's going to be fine.
Well, I love this show, Babylon 5. That's what we're here to talk about, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I wanted to talk about his eggplant cancer, but I guess we have to move on.
Fine.
There wasn't much more to say.
You find a way.
Okay.
All right, Babylon 5.
Yes. So we've just watched the pilot, and as you mentioned, Gus, you've watched it twice. I guess we'll start off just your basic thoughts, just off of your raw thoughts on the show after one
It's
episode.
good. I liked it.
End of
no,
podcast
listen.
episode.
And
Play the music. I mentioned before, and I think I bonked my headphone. As a general nerd, and somebody who was brought up on mostly like Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, this evokes a lot of the good feelings that Deep Space Nine in particular evokes. Not just because it's about a space station, but because it feels like a very, political show in the way that it seems to be less about like oorah boom pow action and a lot more about like there are alliances, there are allegiances. There's a lot of history. I mean, rewatching this again today, one of the things I really started flagging on was just how much interplay there is between all of these different species. I'm gonna be very bad with names until I get everything. I wrote everything down to try to remind myself what everything is.
I'm going to be perfect at names
There's
immediately.
the Narns. There's
Okay.
the Minbari. There's the Centauri, and then humans. And I guess the other ones are Vorlons.
All right, so he's out here just dropping.
I just watched it again.
That would not matter if it were me. That would not matter.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the Centauri used to be big alien on campus, but now they have, I think he said 12 systems and some funny shirts. I don't remember the rest of that line, but I assume it was funny shirts because his shirt is kind of funny.
His shirt being funny is like the least funny thing about it. I believed you referred to him, Ali, as a who in the reaction.
Yeah,
His
it's
hair.
giving Dabu
Yeah.
Doris.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there are different kinds of aliens, right? The kinds of aliens that look human-like on TV are the ones with weird foreheads, the ones with weird noses, and that is pretty much it. Like, there's a
Right.
weird forehead alien, there's a weird nose alien,
There's a Ferengi have weird ears.
and there's a weird ears.
weird ears,
Yes, that's the other one. I was
ears,
looking for a
yeah.
third. I knew there was a third, and the weird ears alien.
Right.
And then there's the ones that are different colors
Yeah.
Well,
That's also, yeah.
The
with
Vorlons,
spots on them, usually some kind of spot.
the Vorlons are the special fifth, I guess, kind of humanoid alien. The ones with a helmet on.
yeah. encased in
Yes,
something.
there is also aliens with helmets.
Guy you can't see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
where you can't see their faces and you're like, why? What's under there? Scary snake monsters? I hope so. Something like that.
Well, the doctor said he looked upon the face of a Vorlon and now nothing will ever be the same again. Or
So
something.
it's a bunch of snakes.
So I assume we're never going to see that.
It's a
'cause I
bunch
don't
of
think-
snakes in a helmet.
Based on the go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's one of those descriptions. It's like we can never, ever, like, there's no way, nothing can be what people's imaginations would come up with. So we're just going to leave it there.
Yep.
It doesn't stop a writer from pitching
I'm
that
not-
the helmet comes off every season, though. Am I right?
It's true.
Right.
And I'm not telling you that we're not going to see it. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
is like how I would approach it.
I just feel like every season in that writer's room, somebody was like, what if the helmet comes off?
Correct me if I'm wrong. J. Michael Straczynski is like the guy for this, right? He conceptualized
It's-
the entire
yes.
show and had the entire thing
Yes.
patterned out
Yes.
from beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
How does
it was
that
it's
affect-
100% his baby.
Yeah.
How does can I ask like a writery, nerdy, Hollywoody question?
Yes.
How does a process like that affect a writer's room?
Should we? Can we? I don't know.
I
Should
don't
we-
know.
yeah.
I don't know. Should we? Should we?
We don't have to.
You'll,
I just was
you'll
curious.
Find out. Well, okay. I'm gonna
Oh,
answer
there's
that
a
in
spoiler.
a general.
Okay.
Yes, but I'm gonna. Yes, I don't want to spoil anything, but I will answer it in a general thing. In terms of, like, I can. So the two examples I'm going to give you outside of Babylon 5 are West Wing, which Aaron Sorkin's name is on every single script, and anything Taylor Sheridan has done. So like Yellowstone and stuff, because like, and that there are you have mixed feelings about that in Hollywood because writers are like, you can't do it all yourself. Like, give us a chance to do things. So I'll just put that out there. In terms of a writer's room, sometimes it means that there isn't much of one. It's interesting because the first thing you said is that this is a political show, and it's a show that has like different cultures and different ideas in it. Now, they're all made up. So when you talk about representation in the writer's room, like, well, none of these cultures actually exist. So you can't actually get a Minbari writer in there. And so, like, in terms of that side of it.
Oh.
But by the same token, like, you want a writer's room to be fleshed out so that you actually have young voices, old voices, Black voices, disabled voices. Like, so in a perfect world, you would have a writer's room where those storylines are going to find their way in, even though the cultures obviously don't match the cultures of the writers because they're made up fake alien cultures. So just putting that out there, that like, I feel like there is always a lack of that when you don't have a writer's room. But there are reasons sometimes, and in animation, this is often the case too, where you're just like, we can't afford anybody else, so we need you to write everything. So anyway, so just putting that out there too. And also like the writers, when you have the whole vision, like too, if you come in as a showrunner who's like, I know where the show is going. I mean, this is the way I write. I'm like, I know where I want to go with it, but I still want to know how to get there. And I want people to help me find interesting ways to tell that story that wouldn't come from me. So I do think that even as a showrunner, if you come in with the entire arc in your head, it's still vital. Like, a writer's room is still vitally important. They might not be pitching one-off episodes, but they're still probably going to pitch one-off episodes because you're like, I want to get this character from A to Z, but a lot's going to happen along the way. And someone pitches I mean, like in Battlestar Galactica, the boxing episode. It's that, it's so clearly like, we don't have a big budget for lots of stuff. We're just going to put everybody in a room and have them fight each other all day. And somebody pitched that. Somebody was like, for when we don't have any money to do an episode, let's just have everybody beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah. Bottle episode. We love bottle
great.
episodes.
Exactly. So,
well, and sometimes really interesting character stuff happens in bottle episodes. Like, people kind of make fun of bottle episodes a lot. But
so
as long as it's not the ones that they do during like strikes and stuff where they're like, remember that time when we were doing this, and then they play a scene from an old episode.
Right.
Do you know those ones where they just sit around?
I know.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
Are you thinking of the same episode as I am from Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Yeah.
That is not the one I'm thinking of.
Season 2.
I'm thinking of the
literal
one
clip
from
show.
Friends where they did the exact same thing, where they were like, remember this time that we did this?
The Thanksgiving one. Actually, no, there's the Thanksgiving one. The funny thing is they always trick me because there's the Thanksgiving one on Friends.
Touchstone, and you and Ali have the same.
So we're on Friends, but there's the one where they're like, "Remember what happened on all those Thanksgivings?" And I was like, "Damn it, it's that episode!" And then it's not.
That one was actually new things that happened.
It's new.
That
things
was exciting.
That they shoot as old, which is actually funny.
But
it's
there
like
are
fake
a lot of
bottle
those
episode.
where it's like, remember this time, and then they just replay old clips, and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, but I would argue that
it's probably a strike.
Yeah, exactly. I would argue that anytime you have a limited writer's room for whatever reason, because either the showrunner says I don't need them, or because financially you have to have a small writer room, I just would say that a show suffers.
Sure.
Because you don't have a myriad a group of voices. Like I think you need voices. And
of course you need a showrunner with a vision that like kind of keeps the ship going in the right direction. But I always feel like I agree 100% that the show suffers 100% of the time when there is not a variety of people in that room. Kind of giving new thoughts and ideas.
I was mostly asking in the context of, because Ali had said, somebody pitches an episode every season. And I was like, well, with this, I don't know if necessarily that's the structure or if it's just... What do people... How do people...
Wait, but there's no way he wrote all 30 episodes.
It's more than 30.
Yeah, but there's no way.
Yeah, there's like 100-something episodes.
No, I mean per
Show.
season.
Oh, per season.
Yeah, there's no way. There's a human being cannot write 30 episodes of television in a year. That's crazy. That's a crazy thing. Did he write every? No, he didn't write every episode.
I don't know the process, so
Jen's
not in season one.
Jen's nodding. Wait, did he write every single episode?
Not in season one.
Not in season one. So,
and we don't want to spoil things. But
all right.
I'm not spoiling anything. I will say, there is a point, I think, on the DVDs, because the first time I actually watched the whole show through was on DVD, and there are a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. There's none of that on the Blu-ray. It's my plea to people who make Blu-rays. Like, what? Why? Or anyway. But
money. The answer is money.
Yeah. He had things that he wanted to happen in every episode. So I think you could probably pitch around that. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
But
yeah.
yeah, so like in terms of coming into pitch, you could say like, okay, you know that like you want this character and this character to have this interaction and this big thing to happen politically. And then, okay, well, wouldn't it be cool if this is how that played out? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if
So
this
pitching-
if this
you'd be
additional
pitching
C
within.
plot was added to the episode or whatever.
Right. Right.
yeah. But
A
even on
C-plot
other shows,
being-
I mean, these are like part of the thing about Babylon 5 is that it's sort of famous for being one of the first times that we've really had that kind of continuity arc for this many episodes that was like, we know we want to get from A, you know, in season 1 from A to K and then from season 2, whatever. And so, and we want to be here at the end of season 1. We want to be here at the end of season 2. And that like someone said, this is the vision of how it's going. But since then we have a lot more. I mean, even Battlestar from 2003 has a lot more
Yeah.
of that. Like someone knew where it was going.
There's more of a
Yeah.
vision.
So
Well, that's because even to pitch something nowadays, like a new show, you have to have several seasons kind of in mind.
Mapped out. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Really?
shows
I
don't make
didn't know
money
that.
until season 2. Yeah, shows don't make money until
Wow.
season 2. So you have to prove that your show concept has the ability to last multiple seasons.
okay.
Unless
Okay.
it's a limited series, but those tend to be difficult to sell. It's a whole thing.
It's almost like there's
Okay.
exceptions to every
Of
single
course there are, but like
Yes.
limited series, you have to have a star because
Well, okay, talking about this, like this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast was to talk about a show that is sort of famous for its vision and its writing with writers, and also to talk about the structure because I know you guys, especially you, Ali, you've just talked about it so much when we talk about Wheel. That's how we all know each other. In case you're coming to this podcast out of nowhere, we all know each other from the Wheel of Time fandom. That's how we met. So you've talked so much about structure, and this is a show that many people say is the first, but I don't know. I have not done the research. It's kind of building that structure from nothing. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm curious to know, like, just based on only the pilot, granted, that's all you've seen, any thoughts on where you think this might be going? Any thoughts on just like, yeah, go, Ali.
well, it's interesting because, and Jen, I'm excited to talk to you about this because I've studied season arc structure largely with like 10 episodes in mind because that tends to be de rigueur right now, regardless of whatever our feelings about that may be. And I'm really curious to like delve into season arc structure in a 30 plus episode season.
No, seasons are like 22
22.
to 24.
22. Okay, still, that's a lot. So like my question is, I guess would it be like two mini arcs in one full season, or would that be like the entire season would be one arc? Because I know you get a mid-season break.
Right.
But so would you break it up
yeah.
like 11-11 and then do like an 11 arc structure and then an 11 arc structure and just end on like what was essentially a mid-season finale? Or
to some degree, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like, you're going to have there would be like a mid-season finale that would be some kind of cliffhanger to keep people coming back. But the season arc is still going to be overarching that.
yeah.
I mean, in a perfect world, in a 22 episode season, I would say you'd even have like that. Those 11s would be broken down into like groups, like threes, like 3, 4, 3, almost
okay.
like the first 3 are Act 1, the middle 4 are Act 2, the last 3 are Act 3 of the first half of the season.
And then you have the beats within that. Mm-hmm. Sick. Yeah. Okay, for those of you who are uninitiated in this conversation, because I was just like, wait, educate me on the ways of the 90s really fast. Because I was like, because all I've got is like the way that it is now.
High-rise jeans, suspender. Oh, wait, you're not talking about
Right.
I feel like we're kind of back there, to be honest. I'm wearing baggy jeans right now. And I'm like, what year is this? But yeah, so, but they're so much more comfortable. But for the uninitiated, I know they're so much better. I'm really happy actually with how fashion is going. But
I honestly, when I celebrated when they came back, I was just totally
it's
anyway,
like
I'm sorry.
life is
Please
hard
go
enough.
back.
We don't need to wear like skinny jeans on top of that. But
Yeah.
so for the uninitiated, essentially what we're talking about is the way that story structure works. So everything that you kind of learned in elementary school about like, you know, there's got to be a climax and a resolution and a like falling action and rising, like all of that has been broken into beats in story structure that is like pretty well established in screenwriting. And then basically that's how an episode works, but it's also how a season works. So like episode 1 would be like your inciting incident episode, which is like the why we're here, what is kind of starting us on our journey. And then, you know, whatever the middle episode is. So if it's an 8 episode arc, let's say, your middle episode is your midpoint. So like something really important happens that like gets us through the slog of the middle of something, because the middle of a story is not interesting unless something really interesting happens. That propels us to like the low point, which is when the characters are the farthest away from their goal. And then we get the climax episode, which is usually in an 8 episode season, episode 7. And then you get the resolution episode and the hook for the next season, which is episode 8. So that's like kind of how that works on an 8 episode structure. So I was just asking a question about how that would work in a 22 episode season, because that is twice as many as I am used to.
It's more than twice as many as you are used to.
More than twice as many as I'm used to.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I would argue that anybody who claims that like this is the first time this was ever done, there's always, as we said before, an exception to the rule. So there's always an exception to the rule. But and you know, there were shows that were more loosely. I wouldn't even say lightly serialized. I would say serialized, but with lots of things in the middle that kind of were the one-offs. I mean, we used to say the monster of the week of, or the alien of the week in X-Files. Like, it was absolutely serialized. There's a whole arc. You got to find out, like, Mulder lost his sister. Where is she going to be? We want to find by the end of the series, we want to know what happened to Mulder's sister. But then there's the one-off episodes that have absolutely nothing to do. And in the same way, I mean, even, you know, early Star Trek, it's like they do grow a little. The characters change and grow. Things happen, relationships form, break up. So you know, and even Friends for that matter, it's definitely serialized. But there are plenty of one-off episodes that you could just pick up and watch without any context of what's going on. And when JMS pitched this show, he was pitching it as we want that if you sit down and watch episode 12 and you missed episode 11, you won't know what's going on. Like, we want it to be.
Which I have to tell you, as somebody who watched this in the 90s, was very disorienting. I remember going over to my friend's house, who was also a big nerd, and being like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, I missed 2 episodes because I had things to do, and you don't have like a TiVo or a DVR or anything. And
it's the 90s.
And it's the 90s. Yep. And I was like, I don't know why he's angry at her, and I don't understand. Well, I'm so confused.
They wanted to create an unmissable show. That's
and it
ballsy.
I would argue that he wasn't pitching it because so from a network point of view, sure, an unmissable show sounds like you can promise those advertisers they're going to have eyeballs every week. But that wasn't why he was pitching it that way. He was pitching it because I want to tell that intricate of a story that doesn't like give you a garbage episode, like that doesn't give you an unimportant episode. I want every episode to have meaning and import. And I will honestly say that I love serialized television. I love serialized stories, but I also think I think it can be fun to try to like walk that line. Of like, someone could sit down and watch this and not know. I mean, okay, we've all read the Jordan books over and over again. And when you reread them, Ali, you're going to like be so frustrated with the first 4 because there's so much exposition in the first 4. It's like, do you really think I picked up Shadow Rising without reading the other 3 books before this? Why are you telling me this? Like,
that is my least favorite part of reading a series. That is my least favorite part, where it's like, in case you don't remember, I know why it's there. I know why it's there, and I know why we do it. I get it. And I'm empathetic to the problems. Because people forget, and I forget. I mean, I'm just as bad.
Have to wait books like years sometimes.
Yes. So I get it. I get it. And we don't always have time to do a big reread before, Onyx Storm drops. Which is what I'm reading right now.
This is definitely a series that like expects you to just kind of keep up. And it, and it was a hard sell, frankly. Like he does talk about that, but it was a hard sell to tell networks like, no, people are going to keep coming back, even though if they miss it, they're screwed. They'll ask their friends or whatever.
But that was a hard sell. especially
Yeah.
because people don't like being the first to do something.
Well, I to be
Because
honest,
then
I
if
gave
they
up on
fail,
it.
they lose their jobs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I gave up on it when it was on the air. I kept trying to catch it in syndication in the summer because I thought, like, if it's like day, I can like get it all in like less than a month. But I gave up, and the first time I watched it fully, like I tried so hard to watch it while it was on the air, and then I gave up probably around season 3, and then. Sorry, I just had a thought, but I can't say that thought. But then I rented it on DVD. That was the days where the DVD.
You went to the Blockbuster?
No, the DVD were sent
Netflix?
to me in the mail.
Early Netflix.
Early Netflix, but yeah, that's how I watched it for the first time.
I still have a red Netflix envelope.
Blockbuster. I'm gonna be real. I miss Blockbuster. I miss going with my dad because when my parents are divorced and have been for basically my whole life. But when we were visiting my dad, we would always go to the Blockbuster and we'd each get to pick a movie for the weekend, and then we go to the bodega and we get ice cream and we get Gatorade, and then we go to the pizza shop. It was like all in a row. This is the best. And then we go to the pizza shop. Well, actually, no. First, we go to the pizza shop. We put in our order. We go to the Blockbuster. We get our movies. Then we go to the, and then we go to the bodega. We get our ice cream and our Gatorade. And then we go to get the pizza. And then we walk home. And that was the best. And so I miss, but there's just nostalgia. But wait, before you talk, I had a thing. Wait. For the uninitiated, serialized television versus episodic television. I feel like we have to say something about that really quickly.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So episodic television is like CSI, right? Every episode is like you could pick it up anywhere. Law and Orders. A lot of sitcoms nowadays have a lot of serialized elements, but like, your friggin' Who's the Boss? Like every episode was kind of like did not require a ton of context for you to understand what was happening. And that's still the case. That's episodic television. Serialized television is when there is an overarching structure that goes through the whole thing. And so if you miss an episode, you're probably going to have missed something important that has happened in the previous episode that like kind of informed what's happening now. Episodic television can have serialized elements. So like Friends was like an episodic show with serialized elements. Yeah. And there are serialized shows that can have like episodic elements too, where like there's like a one-off bottle, like a beer bottle episode.
The Black Market episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to say that because I've been waiting to say that and I keep forgetting to say it. Because people don't know those terms.
Thank you.
Had a thing.
I wanted to go back to your question from earlier, Jenny, about where we think things are going to go and what things we think are going to matter. Yeah. Because having just rewatched it without having this time going like, okay, what race, and actually getting to just kind of pay attention to the things they say more than once. Something very weird is going on with the relationship between the Earth and the Earth Alliance and the Minbari. Because they keep talking about how they surrendered despite pounding the crap out of humans at the line?
The big battle?
The Battle of the Line. And I was thinking of that in relation to when we first see Delenn in the episode. She's sitting in a Japanese stone garden, and she's talking about how, like, the first thing she talks about is she starts waxing poetic about how a single thing dropped into the ocean makes ripples that affect us all. Or
sci-fi shows love stone gardens, one, and two, they love ripples that affect everyone.
Well,
they love a metaphor of like a stone dropping in water. They love them. That is just like.
It's a good metaphor.
It is a good
metaphor.
But I'm
not saying it's a bad. I'm not being a hater. I'm just saying we love it.
I was thinking about that, and that tying in with the other whole thing with the Minbari, mostly in this episode, has to do with how they're the eldest race. It sounds like they're the most advanced technologically. I think Jakar says something about that. That the Narn are the newest spacefaring race, and the Minbari are the eldest. And also, like, she has rings that lets her do gravity magic on people. And something about the Grey Council, the Grey something. that there's like a bunch of wizards, I guess, that advised the Minbari to end the war. They sound
Gandalf
like
the
wizards.
Grey.
I mean, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
The Jedi, whatever, that
Sure,
advised the Minbari to end the war. And then she like shut him down under 5 Gs of pressure until he stopped talking about that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
Ooh, yeah, I forgot about that.
There's gonna be something important about humans, I guess, having independence, or about humans doing something, either for the Minbari specifically or galactically. What's the scale, by the way?
Well, this is definitely going to center around humans because we are a very narcissistic race and we want to watch ourselves. So, like, that is definitely going to set, like, we are definitely going to be the center of whatever conflict is happening.
Well, and the Babylon 5 is an Earth-built station too, right?
Yeah.
Yes. But let me just jump in there really quick because this is not a spoiler for the show, but this is the next show that JMS pitched after this show. He specifically was like, I want to do a show that isn't human centric.
And it didn't sell because we're a very narcissistic species.
Fair enough.
Am I wrong?
Wait, did it sell?
I think it sold and then didn't go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I maintain my statement, but addend it, but add the addendum. It didn't get made because we are a very narcissistic species who likes to watch ourselves. Even when you're talking about like writing sci-fi or fantasy, and people are like, okay, I want to write something that is like completely foreign to everything we know. Mm-hmm. It will not get made because we have to either have Martians on Mars or Earthlings. Martians on Earth or Earthlings on Mars. We have to have something about the world or about the people that we understand.
Yeah.
I don't think that's narcissism as much as it is you need an entry point.
Well, I said narcissism as a joke.
Sure, I know, but I just wanted to clarify. If you get to clarify episodic versus serialized, I get to clarify narcissism versus perspective.
Well, we are also a narcissistic species. That's,
of course we
both
are.
things can be true.
Relatability. Something to relate to. Something to be able to...
I read a book recently where I was ranting to not ranting, because I really enjoyed the book, and I wish I could think of the title right now, but I got like halfway through the book, and I was like, Bodhi, there's not been a single human in this book so far. I don't know what's going on. And there were no humans in the entire book.
I like that. That sounds fun.
They occasionally talked about humans, and they talked about cheese for a while, and how it was really weird that we eat cheese. Like
it is objectively weird that we do.
It's really weird.
Moldy milk.
That is objective.
Yes.
Not only that,
we take milk from another animal, we wait for it to rot, and then we eat it.
Yes, that is a
Specifically
objectively weird thing for us to do.
You guys are making me so hungry right now.
cheese.
I'm like,
I did Hoover.
Pizza.
Like shredded cheese is one of my favorite snacks. I'm gonna be real about that. Like that's divorce kid heaven right there. Shredded cheese. Like when your parents are not home because you have single parents and you need a snack, like you go to town, you get a ramekin, you fill it with shredded cheese, and you just go to town like that.
Nice.
Wait, but I don't want to go too far away from
No,
the
I'm
show.
coming back.
Yes.
All that to say, I'm fairly certain, based on just what I know about knowing things, that it's going to center the human beings. That if this is the pilot episode, this is the like inciting incident for the entire series. We already have set up a bunch of like political divisions between these 4 groups of people, which leads me to believe that those things will escalate for surezies. I'm thinking full out war. I'm thinking war.
War? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly going to be about trying to prevent war.
Well, obviously,
Because
but I
don't
think
they
we're
call the station our last best hope for peace?
Yes.
Isn't that like the slogan?
yeah,
That
it's going to be
is-
about
yeah.
war. Whether or not we're going to go into it is neither here nor there.
sure, yeah.
I'm saying the prevention of or inciting of war.
Okay.
Because to sum up the pilot episode, it's the Narns fucked around with some Minbari to try to drive a wedge between the humans and the
Vorlons.
Vorlons. Thank you.
The warlocks.
Right? Kind of?
Yeah.
Like from what we know of it so
From
far.
what we, I would say.
They're
Yeah.
being so
Yeah.
careful.
the
They're
most
being
beautiful
so
thing
careful.
you will ever see in the universe.
Yes.
Is what?
His face.
Oh,
Vorlon.
yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the
And
Narns
it's a bunch of snakes.
used to be a vassal state of the Centauri.
They
What
were
did?
colonized. They were colonized by the.
They were colonized by the okay.
And so we instantly hate the colonizers.
But now the colonizers are on the back foot because they only have 12 planets.
Yeah, And the colonizers, like the colonizer that we know is Londo. Like
Who is hilarious.
Who is hilarious. So you don't instantly hate them.
And
Right.
wait, I'm sorry to interrupt, but another thing that I realized on my second watch, Londo narrates the introduction.
Yeah.
Londo's the first voice we hear, which is weird, going back to talking about humans being a narcissistic species, because he is our first entry point into the show. Is not a human. It's a Centauri talking about, I was there.
I was there.
I love his fucking voice.
My God, you do such a good Londo.
That's really good.
Oh, that was so good.
He is so good at voices.
Mr.
It's-
Garibaldi. He's just
Yes.
fun. He's got such a specific voice.
Yes.
He's such a fucking goofy guy. Like, he's probably the most immediately likable of most of the characters.
He's the
Frankly?
space Russian. And I
Even
feel
though
like he
he's-
was not supposed to be likable, but the actor was so great that he...
I think he is supposed to be likable.
No, Jen's with me. He was not
I'm with
supposed to
you.
be likable. They were supposed to be the space Russians, but then the actor was so fun that they decided to make them fun instead. Is that what is about to happen?
I'm
I'm not going to say
saying
whether that's
anything.
about to happen.
I am so sure that's what happened. Is he came on, he fucking stole the show. Sorry, I swore. He stole the show.
Oh my God.
And they're like, my favorite thing is that I primarily have worked so far in my career in children's television, and I have like the worst mouth of all time. Anyway, it's just ironic in a fun way.
It's just funny because I know you from your podcast, and you apologizing for swearing is hilarious to me.
Well, I know I'm keeping in mind that we're on YouTube and they have like rules.
We're also
Our
a
podcast has no rules.
Yeah.
Our podcast is on YouTube.
It wasn't when we started,
That's
and so
true.
we were allowed to do whatever we wanted. But yeah, so we had no rules, and now we have rules, but I don't keep to them because I don't care.
Okay.
So I'm trying to care for you. But so, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah.
Space Russians.
I feel like they
Russian.
were supposed to be kind of like the space Russians. No?
I'm not saying anything about that.
Maybe? I mean, they look like Space Napoleon.
Oh, okay, yeah. You did say actually they gave you Russian Napoleon vibes during the reaction.
You said you said Russian. I feel like they were
Well,
supposed to be
you
space
did.
Russian.
I didn't say it. You both actually said that. So I only
Because there
know
always
because
has to
I
be
edited
space-
the reaction.
Since like the 60s, there have to be space Russians in every sci-fi show that has other races. There's the space Russians.
I do like I like the way that they introduce him as, like he is confident and yet he's not. He's like, he needs money. He needs cash. He's like, I'm going to do this because it's a great full character to introduce at that stage in this world where there's all this backstory that we don't know yet. That's clearly
I find it interesting because, like, he is obviously, yes, you're right. He was one of the colonizers, and of course, we are not colonizing. Bad. I'm just gonna plant that flag. I don't
Thank
like
you.
it. But
Well, hot
yes.
take.
Wow,
I
hot
know,
take.
huh?
Colonizing
I know.
is bad, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Exactly. But then there's like Jakar, who is out here being creepy, and he was a member of the colonized.
Yes,
So
he was
we're
of the
like,
oppressed.
Hey,
Yes.
things can be nuanced.
Yes, there is incredible nuance there that I think
When-
is interesting.
Did this show, was this 1995?
Oh, good Lord, I should have that
94.
available.
But yeah, just
94.
because you're subjugated does not
So-
mean you are not capable of being creepy.
Wait,
I'm saying
Yes,
94. Wait a minute. I'm
exactly.
saying 94, and now I'm like, wait. I just looked up Friends a couple days ago, and that was 94. So let me. I think 94. But
Hold on,
I will
Because-
I'm gonna look it up too.
Because if we're talking space Russians, that's after the breakup of the Soviet Union. And if we're paralleling the Centauri with the Russians having once been a larger imperial state, then there's more here.
You see? Space Russians. Space Russians.
right then, that's a really fair assignment. Yes, it was January of 94.
Yeah, okay. So then we're post-Soviet Union. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who like
not that I'm doing a one-to-one. I'm just saying if we're looking for,
it's-
but like culture informs art informs
Yeah,
culture,
yeah.
right? Like it is a cyclical the nature of the beast. So wait,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm trying to think in the 90s, who were the other big major political players that we might be referencing here? Even
I mean,
subconsciously.
when I see Jakar, because he's played by the guy who played Tomalak on Next Generation, I think of Romulans, which
Right,
are
right.
the original space Russians.
Yeah, exactly.
But
okay, we can't have two space Russians.
no, I know we can't. I know we can't.
He's a space
can't.
Russian inside a space Russian suit.
There we
So,
go.
yeah,
There we go.
yeah.
Well, let me ask you about character stuff too, because I
Okay.
do like so we've talked political and these different cultures and their the how they're connected and how they all have ulterior motives, but character wise, is there, like, how do you feel about the show so far in terms of like big picture culture stuff versus like small detail character stuff?
Well, we always have to have that one guy who wants to bang every alien. And we feel like we found him.
Mm-hmm. He made himself pretty clear.
The commander makes a lot. I was watching it again, and the first time they talk about the Vorlons, he goes, "How far do they go on the first date?"
And then he's like, "They're the like grasshoppers of the space world." Like
That's a different person he talks about sexually. That's a different species that apparently we may never see again, which is amazing that they did all the makeup and hair and costuming, and they were like, "All right, you're a grasshopper. You don't have any lines."
Well, that's why probably they're like, we cannot be spending money on that kind of thing.
And the fucking space gorilla with a helmet bartender in the background of a couple of scenes. Love that dude.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he's
I'm
gone
sorry.
after the. I feel like that's a pilotism.
You were asking about
what
characters, Jen. I'm sorry.
I feel like there's a couple things that are going to be pilotisms where they're like, this was a pilot thing, and we're never going to talk about it again.
I'm not convinced we see Carolyn again.
Who's Carolyn?
His girlfriend.
Yeah.
The one who
the one
shows
who bought
up
the
to-
Carlinian bed sheets.
Yeah, the one who was like, we
Carlinian
could get a
bedsheet
ship
lady.
and hit the open road, and he was like, no.
I could see a world in which we see her to like kill her. You know what I mean? Like for the development, because fridging was very popular back then.
Fridging was very important.
mean-
Also, sex was really popular because if we're talking
Yeah.
94 and that's when Friends started, I'd forgotten the first episode. It's just like, it's all they talk about.
Yeah.
The first season, I mean, it's all they talk about.
Yeah.
Friends?
Because it was revolutionary to talk about sex on the internet. Gone were the days where Desi and Lucy had to sleep in separate beds on TV.
Yes.
But
And you couldn't say pregnant on TV.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
to characters, though, they're really fun and they're really specific. I mean, normally after one episode of television, I would have trouble going like, wait, which one, but they're all they all have their own quirks. The one who I feel like I know the least about is Takashima, but even she
I
has
love her. I'm obsessed with her.
Even she has that whole thing with the doctor where she's like, I haven't broken the rules in a really, really long time.
I have broken the rules.
So I'm going to do it now. But I mean, all of them. I mean, the telepath is Lita Alexander.
There always has to be somebody who's ultra sensitive.
She's really, she's cool and she's really different from Deanna Troy. Because I feel like the trap, Deanna Troy being the empath played by Marina Sirtis on Star Trek Next Generation. I feel like the trap in sci-fi when you have a telepath is that they just do the Deanna Troy from season 1 to 3 thing of that.
Pain.
Commander, I sense great pain. And that's all they do.
Great joy. Great. Wait. What is it? Great what in suffering? Great something in suffering.
I
Oh my
think it's
God, I say
pain.
it all the time and I can't remember it.
Is it not pain?
Encounter at Farpoint. Are you that one?
Yeah. I'm at Farpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great episode.
Oh, I love being in a room full of nerds. It makes me so happy.
Yeah. Allie, you
Wait,
gotta
right.
finish next gen, bud.
Because you do
know.
have it's the empath has
Let's not have this argument
role,
again.
right?
Sorry?
The sort of like the stereotypical empath is the like I feel everything so strongly, but also like, and I'm also the nurturing and the mother, and I'm like taking care of everyone, and I feel like Lita is such a really interesting character who's not that right off the bat. Like she's great. She's really strong.
And I feel like I always caution to call myself an empath because I feel like some of the worst people call themselves empaths. But like I have been told by my psychiatrist that she thinks that I am an empath, and I'm like, okay. But when you are an actual empath, it is exhausting. Other people are
I imagine it would
exhausting.
be, yeah.
Their feelings are so tiring to absorb. It's like you walk into a room, because Gus has seen this. It's like freakish. I will walk into a room and I will know which couple, like if we're at a crowded bar, I'll know who's fighting. And so when you're like, that's sensitive to people's feelings because everyone is a walking bag of emotions all the time. It's exhausting. And so I'd be like holding everyone at an arm's length too. I'm finishing my part. Okay, now you can go.
Now?
Yes.
Just after you said, let me finish?
Because I was
What else
literally
did you have?
at
You
the
were
tail
finished.
end of my
I
sentence.
was doing this because I anticipated, she's almost done. I'll jump in. So,
Go.
okay, all right, okay. The other thing I like about Lita is the first time we really see her after she meets the commander is she's a fucking corpo psychic. she's she's a psychic for hire. Helping people leverage business deals. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like, what else would you use? That makes so much more sense than having, again.
Oh, capitalism would love a psychic.
As much as I love.
Like a real, actual, factual one. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. As much as I love season 1, 2, and 3 Deanna Troi, why is she on the bridge?
Yeah.
Why is she on the bridge? But having Lita doing
because she needs
important
to tell
shit.
them when there's pain.
Yeah. Makes sense to me based on the way they're running her character. Garibaldi is a fucking riot. He gives me... I'm going to keep making Next Generation references at first because that is my touchstone. And I have to imagine that when... was it JMS we call him?
JMS.
When JMS was pitching this show, I imagine Trek was one of his comps for it.
Oh, definitely.
So I imagine a lot of these characters are, at least at the beginning, going to deliberately... be giving me vibes of certain Star Trek characters.
Sure.
Garibaldi feels like Riker, like mid-show Riker.
Yeah, because he's screwing everyone.
Mid-show
No, he's
Riker,
not.
but not the
that's not
creepy,
Garibaldi, not
creepy,
Garibaldi.
which
creepy
one's
season
the
one
one
Riker.
who's screwing
No,
everyone?
not creepy season 1 Riker. That's Sinclair. That's Commander.
Who's the one that kind of looks like Tyrell from Battlestar Galactica? Like the is there a security
Garibaldi.
guy?
Garibaldi.
That's
Yeah.
Garibaldi.
Who else is there? I mean, any other characters you want us to no, she's shaking it. No.
I love you saying that they're specific. Like, I think that these characters are very well drawn. Like, I think that the world building is there. And I also didn't feel like it was like super exposition heavy. And I also wasn't completely confused. But I felt like the world building was really clean. And it's all, again, like it's touchstones of things we know and we can recognize and relate to, the colonizer, the non-colonizer, the Russians, whatever it is. Like, it's all things we can relate to. So we get it. And then the characters are just clean and specific. And I think that
And
that
the
makes
exposition was handled pretty naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought so too.
The Minbari, and I know they're going to drift away from this, and I'm not saying this is a copy of such and such thing, but in terms of being like the venerable sort of elder race, they give me a little bit of a Vulcan vibe.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah, yeah.
Also a little bit of a Romulan vibe because there's something kind of shady going on in there. Jakar is cool and gives me Cardassian vibes in a big way,
Which is
especially in Deep
hilarious
Space Nine.
considering that Jakar is the colonized. So it's weird, but
Yeah.
I actually agree with
it's
you.
backwards.
I actually agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely like
Yeah.
that kind of slimy, not because he looks kind of like a lizard, but that kind of slimy, like kind of shady, kind of sketchy, kind of backroom deal guy. I love the way that actor plays him.
Yeah, it's great. He really stole the show in a big way, I think, which is why I'm like, I think that they maybe planned for that character to be a little less maybe impactful than he becomes.
Wait, you talking about Londo
talking
or
about
Londo.
Jakar?
Wait, which
talking
one's
about
Jakar?
Jakar
Jakar's
is the
lizard.
so
Big
the,
head.
yeah, fan
the
hair is
skin.
Londo.
Oh yeah. Okay, Jakar's cool too. He's a bad guy, I think. Yeah, he will continue.
He's the one who they
Yeah.
had drink the transmitter.
Yeah,
Air quotes.
he'll be back. That is not forever. Okay. Well, what was the name of the gal who was like running everything? Like I was obsessed with her. Takashima. I loved her. She was on it everywhere. I feel like I know that Star Trek had minority women characters in positions of power, but like I felt like that was what was really cool about sci-fi in particular.
It pushes boundaries in that way, yeah.
Yeah, is that it could push boundaries in that way because you'd be like, imagine a world in which women were allowed to do things and like people of color were allowed to do things. No one ever commented on it. What a cool world that would be. You know, I feel like that's allowed.
And I felt like I feel like Takashima's character is given. Jenny and I talked about this a little bit, but in the original pilot of Star Trek, like original series, the character of number 1, who was played by Majel Barrett, who is Gene Roddenberry's wife, was like strong and interesting and not particularly feminine or womanly. And it was phenomenal, Ali. It was phenomenal. And then they were like, yeah, we're getting rid of that. We're putting everybody in miniskirts and like, and you know, thank God we still had Uhura. And then she like just bloomed into this incredible, like strong character as opposed to just the eye candy, which she was in the beginning when they were like, we want you to sing this weird song and like go like this.
Oh God, that fucking episode.
That episode makes me crazy. But But number one was so
I
amazing.
hate being a woman sometimes.
I know. And number one was so amazing in the pilot, and then they were like, yeah, no one's going to buy it yet. And I felt like, and even though we'd had strong women in Next Generation leading up to this, really strong women, Beverly Crusher, Deanna Troy, who really grew into that, Tasha Yar at the very beginning.
Yar,
But
I love Yar.
I know.
I was so bummed they got rid of
My
her.
cat's
She
original
quit.
name
She
is
quit.
Tasha
She
Yar.
quit.
Oh yeah.
She quit.
Your cat's
Yeah.
Tasha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tati was
She quit to do a
originally
different
Tasha
show.
Yar.
Oh.
She did quit the show because
she felt she wasn't written well enough. That's why she quit.
Oh.
if
Yeah.
you watch
Oh.
the episodes leading up to her departure, she's a pair of legs behind the
Yeah.
like you know when everybody's standing on the bridge, she's back there and she's literally like she just stands there and she doesn't do anything. And they weren't writing.
And
anything for her.
I've seen interviews with that actress, and she's like, if my entire show or my entire character had been written like I was in the episode which I died, I would have stayed. But they, yeah.
I'm just glad that they, not to talk about Star Trek too much because that's a different show and this is kind of a spoiler, but it's Next Generation and that's whatever.
Yeah.
I'm glad they managed to bring her back
They
several
found a way.
times
Yeah.
later on
Yeah.
as multiple different characters because she's so good in those episodes.
She's so
But
great.
yeah,
She is.
Jen,
So,
to your point.
this just felt like they were like, we're going to do it. We're going to be unapologetic about having a strong woman in a leadership role who's not like trying to be nurturing or womanly or feminine or whatever we think she's going to be. She's just here doing her job.
Yeah, three of them
Now-
between her and Lita and Delenn.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because when we talk about strong women, we're not necessarily saying like that all the female characters need to be like hyper masculine. I think that gets very confused by people sometimes. Or it's like, yeah, when they eat burgers, they're size 2, but they eat burgers and they know things about cars and they like listen to all the cool bands. Like that's just like the male gaze in a different way.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
It's women who are like fully fleshed out and complicated people is what we're talking about. And I feel like that's a really important distinction than like
Thank you.
Megan Fox and Transformers. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. 100%.
As much as I like, I mean, where it's just like, I grew up with 3 older brothers. I grew up with 17 older brothers, and so I know things. Like, I can't.
So I can fix
when
a car.
people go like, they're tough because they have older brothers. I'm like, what if they're just tough because they're tough?
Because they're
Like,
tough. Yeah. Because they're tough.
why is there or my dad wanted a boy, so he treated me like a boy. Like those two are the most tired explanations for why women are tough I've ever heard. I'm sick of it.
Kurosawa used that like 100 years
I'm
ago.
sick of it.
Not 100, like 50, 75, 80.
That was my biggest note as a development executive. I used to be a development executive. I was just like, what if the women are just tough? No
Yeah.
explanation needed.
Mic drop.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Jenny?
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk about, we were talking about Takashima, and she is very related to the thing I wanted to talk about. But obviously, we're starting this new podcast. People are probably going to want to watch along with us. And if you do, this is actually, when we bought the Blu-rays, this wasn't true. It's become true since then. The show is now on Prime. You can watch along with us on Prime. Yes.
Prime new. Prime new.
Yes,
They were like, Ali and
exactly.
Gus are watching. We got to get it on Prime.
Yes.
This is about to be huge.
Yes. But the interesting thing about it being on Prime is for some reason, the version of the pilot on Prime is not the version that we watched.
Really?
Because, yes.
Oh, do
it's
they not have the
same-
Gathering?
No, they have
The
the
Gathering.
Gathering. It's the Gathering, but it is edited differently. It's the one that's on Prime is the one that originally aired. The one we watched is the re-edited version that Robert Jordan, no, JMS got to do when the show was bought by a different network. He was able to go back and re-edit it because to put it mildly, he there's almost an entire chapter about the pilot in his autobiography and how he was unhappy with certain aspects of it, certain ways it was directed. And one of the things I wanted to show you specifically.
Oh, good.
was-
I'm glad you're going to show this.
Yeah, they made the actress who played Takashima re-record all of her lines. The studio did, not JMS, because they found her too harsh. So I want to show you a comparison of this.
I'm going to get annoyed, aren't I?
I bet.
Oh, you're probably
I
going to
bet.
get annoyed. Yeah.
I look
no.
forward to being annoyed.
They're like, the
Okay.
woman, she's too shrill.
you're-
I wouldn't have survived the 90s. I really wouldn't have. Like, I would have been the least popular woman of all time.
They won't submit to a weapons search.
This is outrageous!
You know the regs, Ambassador Jakar. Scanning is the only way to make sure no weapons get on board. So, in that case, being the peace-loving Narns we've all come to know and love, except for a few planets out on the fringe who say you've invaded them. They shouldn't mind being scanned now, should they? But as far as I'm concerned, they could sit out there for the next solar year.
So that was the one we watched. That's the.
I saw nothing
re-edited-
wrong with that.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah,
I'm about
not
to get
at all.
mad.
Yes. So this
She was
the
a
one
woman
that-
speaking with authority to
Yeah.
someone who was giving her attitude.
Yep. And this is the
Okay.
one that aired originally when they made her re-record all of her lines.
I'm going to get mad.
The supply ship sent by my government is not being allowed to dock.
That's correct. They won't submit to a weapons search. You know the regs, Ambassador Jakar. Scanning's the only way to make sure no weapons get on board.
I'm
Except for
fucking
the
dying.
Earth Alliance
Yep.
force?
So, in that case, being the peace-loving Narns we've all come to know and love,
Her faces.
except for a few planets out on the fringe who say you've invaded them, they shouldn't mind being scanned now, should they?
What?
To the highest authority.
She was so, like, the actress was so pissed she had to re-record these. You can tell by how she's talking. Like, she's just like, you wouldn't mind, would you? Like,
Oh,
you could tell
And
she's
God.
so mad. She's
And it's
so
just voiceover.
mad.
It's just voiceover, and then also, but the camera, like they pulled
Yeah,
out
they
wider,
acted-
weird.
Yeah, of course.
because she's like, so she's tiny and
Yeah.
not, she's not threatening.
I'm pitching
Yeah.
up and I'm
anyway.
dainty. God,
Yeah.
she did a good
Yeah.
job with that. But
I
what
would
the
have,
fuck?
that's so annoying.
Yep.
That's so
I'm
annoying.
really glad that we have the other version.
I hate being
Yes.
a woman. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. He was.
But
there
I
were a lot
especially
of
hate it
things-
for everyone who was alive back then. Like that sucks.
Yeah. There was
Wow.
a lot of things he was unsatisfied with. I'll show you another thing from the pilot. That
I'm
that-
unsatisfied with that. I would have been pissed if that were my
Yes.
show. And did they tell him they were making her do this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think he knew. Yeah.
But
Hold on,
still.
where is it?
But that was against his will.
Yeah, it was against his will. There were other this is a scene that ended up in the pilot, but that he cut out for the special
the edit?
edition because
Okay.
because he didn't like it.
They were like, we can't have a woman and a person of color giving attitude on screen.
Since Babylon 5 functions
What?
mainly as a free
What?
Yep.
our living
So
quarters
this
are
is the
are
alien
those?
sector in the original pilot.
Are those fetuses? What are they?
No, it's just alien homes.
this way.
They had to make him fucking weird.
We customize the
Yep.
atmosphere.
Wait, what does that remind me of? What does that thing remind
We
me
can
of?
adjust the rotation of some sectors to vary the gravity. Over here we have methane breathers, silicon life
Heart
forms,
breathers.
Yeah.
insectoids.
Why?
Then, sooner or later, everyone comes to Babylon 5.
Okay. All right. Well, hi.
Is it a zoo?
Okay, yes. All right. I'm just gonna stop sharing.
What the
That's
fuck?
why I got cut.
Why are there?
That's why I
windows?
got cut. Now this is one of the more interesting things about specifically JMS and this show is he was very online when this show aired. So there is actually like Usenet discussions where people were complaining, like people talked about the show, and he would come in and try and argue with people about the show, so you
shit.
could actually see
Oh,
his
boy.
thoughts. Yeah.
Okay.
This is early internet. This is early internet.
very,
Now
very
you're like,
early
I'm
internet.
not going on the internet to find out what people think about my show.
No. So everybody said, "Oh my God, what is it? The alien sector looks like a zoo." And he went in and it was like, "Well, you're assuming that aliens have our human idea of like privacy and decorum and whatever." And then, like when he re-edited, he was just like, "Well, fuck that."
Never
Taking
mind.
that out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
So,
Yeah,
He was
that-
like,
that was
actually,
good.
they're kind of right. It
Yeah.
does feel like
It's
it's
kind of weird.
He was like, yo, no, they're right. Fuck.
yeah.
That bugged
and-
him.
And other things that were missing from the original that ended up in the pilot, which I just think the editing was, because he also talked about the edit, not just the direction, he talked about the editing in his autobiography. That part at the beginning where it's the guy with the trench coat who has the drugs, that's
Yeah.
not in the original.
Really?
And then the most egregious missing part, I know this will hit you hard, there's no flute. There's no
Not the
flute at all.
flute.
Yeah, it's no flute because that flute comes in the discussion that Dr. Kyle and Takashima have, where he walks in and like she gives him coffee and she's put. No, it's that conversation in the original version just starts with him being like, "Let's get the telepath to scan."
No.
And so
No.
there's, like,
good
The flute
character.
is vital.
There's a lot of character stuff. Like even that trench coat thing is showing Sinclair's character, how he's
Yeah.
able to negotiate and do things non-violently and whatever. That's cut. he talks about it in his autobiography, how like he went to try and edit it and he felt like he was under pressure and he didn't know how to negotiate in the editing room, and so he just and
Take it.
Yeah, it was his first show editing, and so
he wasn't like that is actually vital. We need to keep that in
because it is. It's a really memorable. Both of those are really memorable moments.
Yes,
it's all that character,
especially the
development.
flute.
It's all that like explains who these characters are with like minimal words, and
But I feel like oftentimes the stuff that is up for debate as to whether or not to cut tends to be character moments.
Yeah.
Because people are like, well, it's not vital to the plot, so we don't need it, right? And you're like, no, we do, actually, because otherwise they will not understand their motivations and internal world. So please keep that in.
I want
that
to
can
talk
be a
about
thing.
that. Yeah, I want to talk about that specifically, the differences, because if anybody's watching along with us, they'll turn on The Gathering and be like, wait, why were they so obsessed with the flute in their reaction when there is no flute in this pilot? So, just bringing that up for people. Yeah.
We love the flute. No. Okay, I thought it was going to be like, we can't have that because Takahashi being in a room with a flute, I thought it was going to be some bullshit thing.
Yeah.
Where it was like, we can't because like...
Takashima.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I also
Takashima.
said Takahashi because of Mari Takahashi, the YouTuber.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of too. That is what I was thinking of too.
Making the same error.
Because she was on Survivor.
Because she was on Survivor, and and we
Okay.
love Survivor, and so that's what I was thinking of too. Thank you. Okay. I'm glad that you also made that mistake because I was okay. So I thought they were going to be like Takashima being in a room with a flute. Like flutes are too much like penises, so we can't have it. Like, I don't know.
but Sinclair can talk about fucking praying mantis girl and everything else he talks about, and Jakar can have the creepiest fucking conversation.
Yeah, that conversation is good. But to be fair to Sinclair, before we go back to roasting Jakar,
I love Sinclair.
But he was literally stopping a guy from getting killed in that scene. Like,
no, I know.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sinclair's great. I like Sinclair
Remind
a
me
lot.
about the creepy conversation.
Jakar goes up to Lita and is like, hey, you're a 6th generation telepath. The Narns don't have any telepaths.
Oh,
What if? And then he's like, now we could either clone something or we could do just actually procreate. Would you prefer to be conscious or unconscious?
Yeah.
Obviously,
Where
my
is the
preference
HR
would be
on this
conscious.
station?
And then he goes, but I don't know what your pleasure threshold? Pleasure threshold is.
Yep.
And then she's just kind of sitting there like, okay.
Let's sci-fi imagine a world in which women don't have to deal with people like this.
It makes sense coming from fucking Jakar. That guy is creepy as shit.
Like, we're like, maybe there'll be a future world in which we're not getting sexually harassed on the reg. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm about to submit a sternly worded letter to HR. Sternly worded.
Now, I want to make sure that you two have time to do...
I just really love that they had
We're gonna
Lita.
call it the Great Council, by the way. That's what we're
Oh,
gonna
that's
call
the
our
wizards.
society.
That's what the wizards are called, isn't it?
We're the wizards.
You're
so
the
we're
wizards.
Yes,
I just
we're
really
the-
loved that Lita experienced fetishization and sexual harassment.
Yes.
I'm like, you know what? If there was an empath, they would totally be like an actual power like that, like a power, that would totally be a fetishized thing.
Yeah, probably.
For sure.
Most things tend to become a fetishized thing.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There's a rule about that.
There's a rule about that. Okay, Grey Council.
Yes.
Where we
Great
fuck
Are we
off.
commences.
dismissed? Are we supposed
Yes.
to fuck off?
Is there anything else you want to hear from us about on The Gathering before we skedaddle and let you reveal everything while we're gone?
I think I can't think of anything else that like we need to hear now. I'm like excited to hear what you say after the next episode.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch the next episode.
When war breaks out. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I?
I don't know.
We avoid war successfully over and over and over again. Or something like that.
Yes, something like that. So yes, you two better fuck off, otherwise I'm gonna gravity both of you with my
Okay.
weapons of death.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Love you.
Love you, bye.
Bye.
Ah, my friends! You have reached the most dangerous part of our journey, the Grey Council. Here we speak of things that must not be spoken. Secrets, betrayals, spoilers. If you are not ready, turn back now. But if you dare to proceed, I promise you it will be magnificent. Mr. Garibaldi!
Probably have a more formal dismissal for them than that.
I think
we'll follow
fuck off
the
is
routine.
perfectly appropriate and
Yes.
very
Time-
formal enough.
Yes. Time
Yes.
for you to fuck off so the Grey Council can meet. That's exactly how the Grey Council starts every time in the show. I didn't want to, spoil that. This is Bard always telling people to fuck off. So,
Well, I realized that I said 94 because 94 was when the show was technically released, but the pilot was 93. I mean,
Yeah.
The Gathering came out almost a year prior.
yeah.
And I didn't want to say that because that's going to lead to all kinds of questions like, what? Oh my God, are there new actors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which that is going to be the hardest because I knew it. I actually before we watched, I went and Googled the names of characters and specifically was like they're gonna love Takashima, but I couldn't remember her name. They're gonna love her. It's like I need to know her name so I don't give away that.
Right,
I
that you don't know
her
who she
name.
is.
Yes.
Because she's gone.
Exactly. Yes. I worry that it's going to mean that it's going to take them a while to warm up to Ivanova, which
I know, but I love her so
I love
much.
Ivanova so much. And I
She's
know I
such a
didn't
great
see the
character.
pilot. The first time I watched it, I didn't see the pilot first because it aired
'cause
like
you
a good
didn't-
year before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Came out,
so
like,
there
you
was
know,
there was no question of like, oh, she's a replacement or she's somebody else, and she's such a cool
Exactly.
character, and she's so good,
Yeah.
and really also like just strong and commanding and cool and like interesting and 3-dimensional, and I'm excited, but I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're talking about Londo and Jakar, again, having read JMS's autobiography, knowing that he wanted Londo to be a buffoon. And they're saying, he wanted Londo to be a buffoon because then he can become, like, Londo's story,
Yeah.
I actually hadn't put together that he's the first voice we hear. His story is probably
It's
the
his
most
story.
tragic. Yeah,
It's some of the
is
most
his
tragic,
story,
and like,
yeah.
and he has like in some ways, I think the biggest arc change. Like he
Yes.
really becomes
Yes.
this like, and it'll be and it was interesting to hear JMS talk about that and how like he wanted to tell a show that he wanted to write a show that said what happens when a character becomes, starts here and becomes something completely different.
Completely different. Jakar also has an arc like that too, which like that creepy line that hilariously that line comes back. The pleasure threshold. Do you remember this? That comes back like
No.
in the final season.
Oh my God, I did not
Yes.
remember that. Oh, that's great.
But it comes back from Lita. Lita says to him, "You once asked me what my pleasure threshold was. I don't have one." Is what she says.
I did not remember that, and now I can't wait to get there. I can't wait.
Anyway, but yeah,
That's
like to
great.
have him
And also
start, like,
Lita, like I love that they're gonna lose Lita, but they're not gonna know that she's gonna come back.
I know, and I love that that's going to happen, like with even Sinclair, like because they will like, well, we've lost these characters. When Sinclair disappears, they're not going to expect him to come back, and he's pivotal, like he's utterly pivotal to the story. So many things that I'm so excited for it. Like I just yeah.
It's really fun to watch it unfold, and it like. So, okay, like not to talk about Agatha, but I'm going to talk about Agatha for a second. So Agatha all along, and the whole idea of like a puzzle box mystery show, like a puzzle box show or a puzzle mystery show where you drop things in that pay off later. Like that just wasn't even an option in the 90s, really much, and it certainly wasn't prior to that. So, that's becoming more normal and also expected. People want to watch something now and say, oh my gosh, when I'm watching the last episode, I'm realizing they're talking about these things that they set up back there. And it just didn't exist back then. So I think in some ways, like somebody watching Babylon 5 for the first time, certainly back then, but even now watching it for the first time isn't going to expect that line to come back. And, and some of the things to show up again or to be important later.
Yes. Well,
really
speaking
cool.
of like stuff like that, I actually got some stuff here ready to show specifically you only. Differences
God,
between
great.
the special edition. Okay. Oh, there's a couple. Okay. I'm just realizing the things I want to talk about. The original plan with Sinclair, I don't know how much you know about behind the scenes. Well, obviously you've read his autobiography, so you know what happened with Michael O'Hare, which is pretty tragic. So obviously that was not like what ended up happening with Sinclair's story was not the original plan because Michael O'Hare was supposed to stay for the entire show. Right. So there are hints, there are things that were said in the pilot like in the special edition, for example, he cut out the line from the original pilot that says Sinclair was the last captain of Babylon 5 because he obviously was not, because he gets replaced.
We're gonna have Sheridan.
Exactly.
I'm shocked that Prime is playing the original aired one.
For some reason, like somebody asked JMS this on, I guess, Blue Sky. I don't know where I saw it, but somebody asked him, and he said it has to do with what licensing rights they have.
Yep.
So yeah, it's always that. Like he has no control over that. So this is the original version of. Hopefully, tell me if you can hear it.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the original version of the vision that Sinclair has. Nobody says anything to him, and look, normal human Vorlon hand. Normal human Vorlon hand. That's it. So I don't think there's any more you need to see there. Okay, and then I'll play you the one from the special edition.
That's what people are currently watching on Prime?
Yes, on Prime.
Entilza Valen.
So he calls him Entilza. Entilza is the name of the leader of the Rangers. We don't find that out until... And he calls him Valen, which we don't find out until season 3. This is in the special edition, right? Which I'm like, Gus and Ali didn't notice at all, which, But it's one of those things when you go back and rewatch, that's there. And then glowy hand. So they made his hand glowy because that's his, when they finally do reveal the Vorlon, they do eventually reveal the Vorlon.
Yes. Which I was like, they think they're never going to see it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. We see their true form twice, but the first time we see their true form, it's actually not their true form, and then we see their actual true form later. It's a whole thing. Right. It's like layers on layers. But yeah, they added this glowy affected for this. So that's just a change that they made in the updated version.
When you recut it for the DVDs.
Yeah, for
the whatever.
But I think it was like TNT or something. Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I should know these things. I have a podcast about this now. So, yes.
Well, yes, and there are a lot of things to know about all of these things.
So much. Yeah. Yes. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say about G'Kar is having him be creepy at the beginning, I think also works in the same way that having Londo be a buffoon that you immediately like, having G'Kar be creepy, because he ends up being like a religious leader towards the end of the series.
Right.
So they both have kind of opposing arcs. Although Londo's story is so tragic. Like it's such a weird thing for me, because you never you hate what he's done, but I think in reality I would end up hating him, but it's a show, so there's always I do end up, even while he's being horrifying, it's like, but it's Londo. Like, I'm sad. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it is one of the it's one of the things about television, about film, about reading a book that you just don't get in real life, which is we're privy to their thoughts in a way. Like, even if it's just like a moment where they're on screen by themselves and they do something or they touch something or they pick something up. But we get to be voyeurs seeing these people at their most vulnerable, which we would never see in real life. And it just, maybe it's a good reminder that people have complexities and layers and levels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the as a storyteller, I think that's one of the things that stories give us. Like it's and a way to empathize and see. It's one of the. I mean, I talked about this before. Like this has nothing to do with really Babylon 5, but why representation is such a big issue is. I feel like I've spent a lot of my life understanding the perspective of a straight white man, and it would be awfully nice if
if other people could,
other people also had to look at stories from my perspective. That would be nice too, or somebody similar to me, or whatever. Yeah. So.
No, it's true. I mean, we watch with our kids. We watch a lot of older television too, and older films, and I am sometimes so mindful and worried about showing them. I mean, even just we're watching Friends right now, and it's just like, it's so white and it's so straight and it's very disparaging, in early days. I mean, just some of the humor is horrible, but there's some great things about it as well, but it's really and it's interesting because we just watched, I was just watching Silverado with my kids the other day, and I was just like, well, I guess they're portraying the Old West, so everybody's going to be white. And then I'm like, wait a minute, Danny Glover's one of the main characters in the show, like in the film. It's like my second favorite film of all time, and I know it very well. But I was just like, oh, of course, at least they did a little bit of, trying to just, create a better palette, but and also like, talk about his experience as a black man in the Old West.
Yeah.
So, but it is because I watch so much sci-fi and because I watch so much fantasy. It's shocking to me when so much of it like runs that same course of like assuming that, we're all looking at it through a very white lens. And I'm again so grateful to Rafe Judkins for giving us a different palette in A Wheel of Time. Yeah. Yeah. And grateful to Gene Roddenberry for giving us Nichelle Nichols, Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, like, I don't know how much of this we'll see how it fits in the edit, but I think if I watched these shows like Friends the same way that conservatives watch any show with a brown person and assume that there's an agenda involved in the casting, every show I watched growing up, I would think they were racists. Like, if you assume an agenda has to be behind the casting, then especially shows like Friends and Mad About You and Sex and the City and all these shows that take place in New York fucking City, where there's like, they never encounter black people or any minorities of it. That the only way you're doing that is intentionally in a city that actually exists in the real world. So if you assume an agenda for one but not the other, then that's telling me you have an internal agenda. That's, there's no other way to, That's a rant that I have about that. That has nothing to do with Babble On 5. So.
It is a very fair rant. Yes.
Yes. Do you have any other Grey Council? Oh, I have another Grey Council thought that I don't know that you know. Okay.
I might not. I probably don't.
So, Delen's makeup in the pilot is very different than her makeup. Obviously, like afterwards she gets hair, but like in season 1, even the rest of the time, her makeup is different. Do you know the reason for why?
No. Is it a coward? No. Is it a Tin Man thing? Was it a makeup allergy? Okay.
No. JMS's original plan for Delen was for her to, the actress, like for the character to be male. And then when she transitions to partly, like to be half Minbari and half human, for that transition to also have her transition into female.
Oh, wow.
That was his original plan. The reason it didn't happen was because they could not figure out, they tried everything in post to make Mira Furlan's voice sound masculine, and they couldn't get it to work. Everything ended up sounding ridiculous, so they just gave up on it. So there's that scene
like they were just affecting it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the scene in the pilot where, like, she's carrying somebody, and everybody's like, oh, that's amazing. Like, she was supposed to be a man. Like, the character was supposed to be male. Yeah.
Wow.
It's one of those things, that would have been fascinating. I'm a little nervous about how well it would have been handled at that time. Like, JMS, a very progressive person, I don't think there would have been any bad intention.
Yeah, but I have to say that, like, yes, and I agree, because he talks about the other show that he was writing in the book. Yeah, and how like they like it devolved into they wanted to have the captain of the ship like have a female crew member being sexually assaulted, and
Crusade,
he was like, and he was just like, that's not happening. We're done.
Yeah, no.
Okay, and like, thank God. I mean, so yes, I trust him to have done it well and sensitively and carefully and thoughtfully. That's fascinating. Because to me, one of the most progressive choices that he made was to make Delen a female character in that role. Because I think there's something so, like, the Minbari are this, like, and basically at that point, all of our Vulcans, our wise Vulcans, they were all men.
Men, yeah.
And so to have this character be like, I'm the wise one, and I'm, like, grounded, and have it be a female character, I thought was really a strong choice and really interesting. And so that's fascinating.
Delen is one of my favorite characters. I think on like my second rewatch of the show, I was like, I think I'm a little in love with her. Like, she's just like one of my favorite characters of all time. Like, it's not even just in Babble On 5. One of the things I love about her is that she is strong without being masculine. Like, she's not one, like, and I love Ivanova, but Ivanova has a lot of masculine type characters, and I love them both. Like, I love that we have both of those things represented, those aspects of humanity, not just womanhood, but just humanity in general represented. But Delen is incredibly strong, and she's incredibly soft and empathetic and kind. Like there was no attempt to harden her. But I do think that was a choice. Like after they gave up on this, we can't make her voice sound like a man. It's just not working. So
well, that's also fascinating to me that they were like, we're going to do this really heavy makeup, but use the same actor. Like they weren't like, we're going to have it be a male actor who then transitions and becomes, you know what I mean? Like at the time, that's just another interesting way they could have done it. That would have been whatever. So speaking of her being like your favorite character, I have to say, so it's been a long time since I've seen it. And when we sat down to watch The Gathering and she opened her mouth and started speaking, I was like, it was this wave of comfort and familiarity and safety. I love her accent, which is whatever it is. Like, I don't know if they worked with the dialect. It is. No, it's her actual accent, right?
She's like, I forget where she's from, but it's
Eastern
like
European,
Croatian, or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah. All this information I should know. Again, I have a podcast about Babylon 5. I should know this.
Well, you will know it probably by the 5th episode of our podcast, for sure. But there was something, like she is so soothing to me. She's so soothing. And yes, I was just like, oh, I could listen to her speak all day. She's amazing. Yeah.
I love
I love her relationship. I'm excited to see. Like, it's interesting because watching The Gathering and like seeing her relationship. Because when I think of Delenn, I think of her relationship with Sheridan and how, of course. And so it's really interesting to watch her relationship with Sinclair and like. Yeah.
I think that obviously the original intent. Yeah, the original intent was for that to be Sinclair. Like, I do think. One of the reasons I would never bring this up with Ali is because I think Ali would immediately do the math and be like, oh, she's going to end. Like, if they wanted her to this character to be a male to female transition, then they probably had a romantic, that's a very easy math to do, even though that's not necessarily how transitioning works, but I can just see,
But they did, and it's interesting because that was, by making her, they did make her more feminine, for sure. With the hair. I mean,
you'll see it, you'll see it immediately when you see the difference, because they did things with her jaw to try and to basically give her a masculine face profile.
That is fascinating. Pilot. Oh my God. I can't wait to like look at that now with that in context.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to bring up with you. Oh, talking about the writing, how many episodes he wrote. She's like, it's impossible. Oh no.
And I was like, I'm such a bad liar and I'm such a bad like keeper of secrets when people are asking me and my face is involved in the scenario, and I'm just like, I don't know how to answer this.
He basically killed that. Like, he killed his marriage by basically.
I was like, I literally was like biting my tongue to not say, but just like ask him about his wife.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, this is here. So here is me admitting my hypocrisy with this. When I see how I want something to be as a writer, I tend to be like, just let me write it.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I want. Just let me write it. It's harder to farm it out. As a WGA member, I rage against Tyler Sheridan and his, I'm going to just do it all myself. And as a showrunner, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
And it's really bad. So that said, I also love a big staff. I think to me, the biggest reason, truly the biggest reason to have a staff is to have that representation of voices and to have different perspectives and to have someone who can say, I mean, sometimes it's just somebody who can call out and say, like, Jenn, you're older than the rest of us in this room, but today, like, that isn't like that. You got to just think about something you're not thinking about, like progressively. I'm like, okay, that's great. So then you need
a perspective you've never thought of. Yeah.
And then, but it's also good to have somebody older than me in the room who's like, okay, but from the point of view of a mentor, like, this is where we would look at it as well. So I mean, it's not just it's representation of across age, across ability, and across race. And I think it's and cultures, it's so incredibly important. And so even at the end of the day, if like they're informing everything that's being said and I go in and rewrite every episode to be, to like I'm like, okay, good. They got their points in there. They got their voice in there. And then out, but I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. And I do ultimately, there's two things going on. And the second thing is I love giving people their first opportunity. And I've done that, I've done that when I run shows is like, write it the way that you would write it, because your voice, even as a writer, I don't want the tone to match. And it's very much my gut and where I live, but I have to say I learned a little bit of that from Ava DuVernay when she was running Queen Sugar, because she would bring in directors and they would say, okay, because usually on TV as a director, you come in and you're like, what's the vibe of the show? Like, what's the look of the show? And you're trying to match the aesthetic of the show. You're just directors and TV directors are like, they're directors for hire. They're not associated with the show. They don't stay attached. And so you come in and you're like, great, what do you want me to do? What do you want it to look like? And when Ava gave women directors, usually women of color, their first shot to direct, like they'd come from features or from, festivals to come in and direct. She was like, they were, I saw this amazing talk with a bunch of women who directed, I think on season 2 or season 3 of Queen Sugar. And they were like, oh, no. She came in and she said, direct it the way you want to direct it. Like, I want this to look like you. I hired you because I loved your short film. I don't want you to not do you on the show. And I just think that's so beautiful. I think that's so great. And that's the thing is, like, if you have a good writer's room and you know where the story's going, there will be things that come up along the way that people bring that's so important. And so it'll be interesting to watch it now in the context. I had very strong thoughts when I watched it the first time about the writing. Yeah. Without the experience I have now as a writer. And so it's going to be really fun and interesting to watch it now, and also from the lens of a showrunner and saying, like, I get why you wrote them all. I get that they didn't give you the time or the budget or the whatever. But also delegating is hard, and sometimes it's easier not to, and I think it's important that people do. And they're like, I'm going to give this up and let somebody do it, and even if it's fucked up, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, because like I was going to say, as you mentioned, like, to be fair to him, it's not something he intended. It sort of happened by accident, and then the studio was like, oh, you just saved us a bunch of money to keep doing that, please. And so,
exactly. Like, by accident, by necessity, because we also were like, okay, if I don't write it and they throw the show away, how many other people are going to be out of work because my show goes away, like from gaffers to costumers to whatever. So, it's like, okay, I know I might not employ an extra 3 writers, but at least I'm going to get the rest of the crew still working.
People, but I do agree. There are times in, like, I love this show. Like, I'm doing this. But there are times, especially in the later seasons, where I'm like, oh, I wish that he might have talked to a lady before he wrote this line. Like, there's some moments where it's just like, oh, okay, not a writer's room. Like, I can see that there might have been some help there. Or I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe I'm just reading into it about my assumptions based on what I know. But there are moments where I feel like that.
It's a big part of it. But there's also, like, someone else to just say this dialogue isn't singing. Like, people aren't going to say it like that. Like, can you find a different way to say it? And in a perfect writer's room, and I think that JMS would have been very open to this. But in a good writer's room, you create a vibe and a culture where even the staff writer, which is considered lower level on live action TV, or the story editor, which in animation story editor is like head writer, but in live action story editor is like junior.
Oh, really?
And so, it's the terminologies and all of it is so crazy. But that even the story editor or the staff writer could come to him and say, I don't think this reads. This doesn't, I don't buy it. And like, that's what you hope, is that you foster a room where people will call you out, because when you're so close to it too, you see it all. And you're like, I know my intentions in there, even if it's not showing up on the page. And hopefully you have someone there who's like, it's not showing up on the page.
Right. And I to be clear, I'm not saying that is the case for a lot, but there's just some moments where I'm just like, oh,
yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I think those are all of my Grey Council thoughts.
Awesome. I don't have a ton yet, because I kind of wanted to like feel out how, like, I wanted to hear what Ali and Gus were going to say and like what they were going with, and and walk through this. So I didn't have like any big questions, Grey Council questions, other than just to say I can't wait to see their reactions when all the characters they love are not there.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I will say this. Gus sent me a DM like before, or like in our group chat, I suppose, asking for names of characters. Like, I just want to make sure I have these names right. And I'm just like, oh, Gus, like, half of the names you just wrote down, they're characters you don't need to remember at all.
No,
Like,
no.
no. But we'll find that out next time. So,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also can't wait to talk to them about the year gap. And
yes.
like,
yeah.
because there are many things that means, which is, you know, like, because the pilot to episode 1 gap is a real thing from that time period and was always there, but it was usually 4, 5, 6 months, maybe tops.
not a
because
year.
the pilot was, and it wasn't even air date. Like, the pilot was shot in the spring, but it wouldn't air until fall. So like this whole idea that they aired it and then a year later started airing the actual show and made so many changes, and it's really interesting.
Okay, you've read it, I've reread it more recently than me. Is it true? I think I'm remembering this right. The pilot for B5 dropped, and then in that year, in the year in between that, the pilot for DS9 dropped, and then, which is just such an unfair thing, I think, is what happened.
I think so too, because it was. Wait, I'm gonna look up the date for DS9 because I thought it preceded even the pilot for this. It was pitched. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
DS9.
1993.
Okay, DS9 aired in January of '93. The Gathering aired in February of '93.
Oh, okay.
But they were making Babylon 5 first.
Yes.
And JMS had been pitching, and it was the whole thing about, like, so the weird thing about the networks, because Universal was trying to create a network, but this was before UPN. Warner Brothers was creating a network in conjunction with Paramount, and then they ended up splitting and making 2 separate networks. And so suddenly Paramount was like, we don't want the show that you've been pitching us, bye. And then they made DS9.
Yeah.
And, you know, and JMS's theory was, like, at the time he said he didn't know anything about it, but like in future, like as time went on, he was like, well, actually the things I was pitching them were what showed up in DS9. Like, how much influence did it have? But yes, they co-opted it. And I can't remember. Oh, I'm going to have to go back and I literally was like re-listening to the previous chapters this morning. And then I'm going to go back and re-listen to that chapter because I don't exactly understand the timing of how he pitched, why it got held up. And then if it was that then Warner Brothers was like, okay, let's make it quick because we want to compete with BS5 or BS9. Right. You know?
Yeah.
DS9.
Because it's DS9, yes. Because it's the whole thing. When I'm reading it, I think I've read it twice now, but every okay, I understand it, and then I get off and I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
When I'm not reading it. So, but yeah.
Well, good. I will do my homework and reread it again, and like have all the dates with me when we talk to Gus and Ali next time, because like they're gonna have to know going in. Like we'll be able to tell them afterwards. Yes, this aired a year after. Yeah. And this is how it fell out in Babylon 5.
Yeah.
And Deep Space Nine.
In DS9, yeah. Because even like Gus was like, there's a Lita in DS9. I was like, I wonder, did they take the name? Like, did they pick the name?
Oh my God, like a Lita character? Like the name Lita?
There's a name Lita shows up in DS9.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know. There's no way to know what they took and what they didn't, but I just,
Well, and it's also like, it's such a weird industry. Like everybody's under NDA and nobody doesn't talk to everybody about what they're working on. And so like people are literally, I mean, they do respect the NDAs and they're careful about it. But when you're throwing ideas around, you start talking to your friends about it. And, I've had people who are like, please stop talking. I don't want to hear anything about what you're doing because I don't want to accidentally steal it.
Well, that's from the autobiography as well. That's what happened with his wife. She was like in the room when they pitched, like they were like, "Oh, we're making a show about a space station," and she was like, I have to go. Leave. Yeah,
exactly.
My husband's doing literally that. I got to go.
Yeah, I am pitching 2 different shows right now that like from different places, from completely different worlds. Like one was one that I built based on a particular property, and then someone completely unrelated to that said to me, "Hey, we have this children's book we'd like you, or young adult book we'd like you to take a look at it and give us a take on it." And I was like, there's just one particular genre thing that they're the same. And I was like, what? Like, and so, and I, and then I did something last year that I was developing a show, and then I was asked to work on help write a pilot for another show. And I was like, there are things that are similar. Should I remove myself? Like, I've already built this stuff, but I haven't pitched it yet. So you know it. my producing partner know it, but no one else has seen it. And if I go out and pitch it after I've written over on this other pilot, are people going to be like, did you just rip that off? And I'm like, but I didn't. And then I just watched Skeleton Crew on Star Wars, and the number of things that were exactly like something I was pitching to Lucas for Star Wars, like, but not, they didn't steal it from me 100%.
Yeah.
I just think I was working with someone else there who I think had read those, and those things got in there. Sometimes
that is the other thing that I wonder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't, because obviously JMS has his theories, but I do wonder, like, somebody reads your pilot and then like a year later they're talking to somebody about it and it's just marinating in the back of their brain.
Yeah.
That's not intentional. That's just how human brains work.
Exactly. And you don't, and I used to have such a steel trap memory for like knowing like this came from this person, this idea came from here. My husband and I were writing partners for many, many years. We still love it, but it's financially stupid just to be writing partners. We're like, we make more money when we aren't writing together. But, but when we would write scripts together, like we couldn't always remember who wrote what or who came up with what. Like we'd have to go back and check the computer, or like when we were talking in a room, we'd both have a great idea. And then later I'd be like, that was totally your idea. And he was like, what? No, that was your idea. Who knows? And it's you. And when also like you're hearing ideas, you're hearing elevator pitches, you're hearing people talk about idea. Like someone might have just heard, what about a space station? It was, and then like a year later was like, oh, that'd be the best Star Trek show. So it is hard. It's hard to know. And it's really, it's frustrating to spend time worrying about it because you know, you can have something registered at the WGA. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't protect you. Like you can have things copywritten. It doesn't really protect you. And that's why there's like 2 volcano movies at the same time and 2 Earth,
two comets hitting the planet. Yeah.
Exactly.
At the same time.
Yeah. That, so it'll always happen that way.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you. And
thank
I look
you.
forward to the next one.
Me too. This was super, super fun.
Yes.
And it's really great. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for inviting me to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you for being a part of it. I'm excited and nervous to see what happens when Takashima is not in the episode.
I know. And I just watched her. She's in Monarch.
Yeah, I know.
And I was just like, wait, what? Why do I not remember her in Babylon 5? Like I had to really think hard about it.
Yeah.
And then I was so excited. Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And I was like, wait, where's Ivanova? Wait, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Who's this guy? Who's that guy? Who's there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So.
that's how it goes. So,
I know.
all right.
All right. Well,
see
until
you for the
next
next
time.
one. Yes.
All right.
I'm wanting to close it out like I close my other podcast. Keep it real. No, we got to come up with our own stuff.
Keep babbling on.
Yeah,
Babble on.
keep babbling on. Yes, babble on.